Hello again, this is Michael, the DM. Welcome back. And today I wanted to talk about this idea that is called net decking. So, this is a term I wasn't familiar with until I started playing Hearthstone sometime last year and started to explore around online, trying to figure out how to play. One of the things I did is to, you know, Google Hearthstone, see what comes up, try to find out how to get better as a player. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today is this idea of net decking, of using other decks that have been successful and just playing them instead of creating your own decks. This can be somewhat of a controversial topic. I think now it's pretty widespread and everyone does it, but some people have some strong feelings about it. Feeling like you should be creating your own decks, you shouldn't be a copycat, that to really be a great player, you need to learn how to build your own decks. And what I think is, I think net decking is a great way to become a better player if you do it mindfully, if you're really paying attention to what you're doing instead of just copying decks, launching into a game and really not thinking too hard about it. So this ties into psychological theory that I wanted to talk about, and I wrote about it last year. Is this idea known as social comparison theory? And what social comparison theory states is that as humans, we all try to understand our behavior by observing other humans. Pretty straightforward. And when we compare socially, so we look at ourselves and we compare ourselves to others, we can compare either in an upward direction or a downward direction. So, upward social comparison is this idea of, you know, looking at someone who's rich, who's famous, who's more skilled than you potentially, and comparing yourself to them. And that upward social comparison can be a little bit of a mixed bag because, in one way, it could motivate you. I really want to be as good as that person. I want to make as much money. I want to be as successful, whatever the case may be. But it could also be depressing. It could be a downer. You look at somebody else and it's like, wow, I'm never going to be that good. I'm never going to be that famous. I'm never going to be that successful. And it can really drive down motivation to the point where you don't do anything and you become inactive and you're really not, following through on any of the activities that you want to do. Um, and one of the things that's really unique that I've noticed about the Hearthstone community is there's so much opportunity for upward social comparison. As a casual player, there's so many ways to see how the pros, how professionals are playing Hearthstone. You can go on Twitch and you can watch streamers who play the game for a living. They're sponsored. This is what they do. They're experts at this game. You can go on Twitter. People are posting deck lists all the time. YouTube, there's channels devoted to Hearthstone. Um, there's multiple websites that are devoted to the competitive arena of Hearthstone. So websites like Tempo Storm and Hearthpwn and Hearthhead and these sites that are really have boundless amounts of information in terms of specific decks to play, different strategies, different things going on in the meta. And meta is another term that I didn't really understand quite at first. Meta is this idea of the specific decks that are competitive right now in the game. And the meta shifts over time as new cards come into play, or a professional might be experimenting with a deck and that deck gains momentum. That deck rises up to the top, and then other people try to figure out, okay, how do we beat this deck? They create new decks, and then those decks become popular, and it continues to, as someone on Twitter told me, it continues to churn. The meta keeps moving. In Hearthstone, there's kind of three different types of decks. There's the aggro decks, the very aggressive, let me push as much damage out as quickly as possible, kind of mid-range, and then control, more of a late game deck. So by watching pros, going to these websites, it really does expand your scope of what's possible in this game rather than just some kind of silly little mobile game you play on your phone when you're stuck on the bus or, just waiting for something else to happen along your day. So diving into Hearthstone, it's a really big pool out there of players. And it can be a little intimidating. So net decking is one way to maybe even the playing field a little bit. Um, so if you see somebody that is successful with a certain deck, I think it's quite acceptable to take a look at that and understand, well, why does this work? Why is this deck functioning pretty well in the overall meta in the competitive scene? So the video I'm about to show is just today. I took a deck list from one of the professional players that I've seen on Twitter, and they posted a screenshot of a deck list, and it's a deck list that I've been thinking about for quite some time. Um, in terms of the deck itself, it's a Egg Druid. Paladin, pardon me. So this deck is a egg paladin, and the whole point of this deck is to throw out two different types of cards: the Nerubian egg and this other egg. And what happens is when you boost those up, it just creates a lot of value in your deck. And not a lot of people are familiar with it yet, so it catches people off guard. And so far, it's been quite successful in helping me achieve a few more ranks on the ladder. So really what I encourage you to do is go to some of those websites out there, play different heroes, play different decks, play different type of decks, and you'll get better with your overall game. Certainly I think it's helpful to also try to experiment with your own decks. Um, a nice middle ground is to find a deck list of a hero that maybe you're not as familiar with, and then try to tweak it, make it your own, change a few cards around here or there. The other issue with casual players is you might not have all the cards that you need to make some of these professional decks, because usually they rely on a few key legendaries or some cards that are epic or rare that you might have access to in your inventory. And if that's the case, just do the best that you can. Look at the cards that you have in your inventory and try to find something that is close enough to the same effect. So be careful as you're out there, comparing yourself to these professional players. If you're like me and you have a full-time job and Hearthstone is more of a hobby, more of a side activity, don't get too down on yourself if you lose a few games in a row or can't make a certain deck work. There's folks out there who are playing 10, 20, 30 games or more per day of Hearthstone, and they're tracking their progress. They're seeing, what cards win in a certain deck, what cards don't win, and they're continuing to refine that competitive scene. Netdecking gives you the opportunity to benefit from all their efforts and kind of take that information and make it your own. So if you have 20 or 30 minutes to play Hearthstone in a day, you don't have to get crushed on the ladder. You can take a deck that is somewhat successful already and have some fun. And that's what I encourage you to do. So enjoy the game coming up. And for more information on this idea of social comparison theory and how it relates to being a new player in Hearthstone, I did write about this last October. So the link is below. You can take a look at that and enjoy the game. Thank you. So today is the first day that I'm using the Egg Paladin, and here I wanted to mulligan for some earlier cards. I have the Tyrion for late game. I'm guessing against the Hunter, they're going to be coming at me with some pretty heavy aggro. So nice that I have the Noble Sacrifice that can slow things down. Obviously, what I want to do is play the Nerubian Egg and then boost it with either a Keeper of Oldemon, perhaps an Abusive Sergeant. Nice, I can throw the Shield of Minibot down. So one of the Hunter decks that's been out there recently that I've run into is the Camel Hunter. Be interesting to see if they play that. But I've been enjoying running this deck here today. I think anytime you start playing a new deck, it is a little bit of a hit and miss, in the sense that if you haven't played the different combos before, you're still learning how to mulligan, learning how to approach different turns. Certainly make some misplays along the way. Have had good success. Was started today around rank 10, I believe, and now I'm kind of in the rank 8 range. So had a pretty good run so far, which has been nice. Um, really does pretty well against druids, some other secret paladins. Lost to some priests. Just lost a pretty interesting game to a rogue where I was somewhere above 20 health, and they had a pretty wacky combo to kind of one turn kill me. So we'll see how this game goes. Next turn have some options. Can certainly throw down this egg and see what else I draw. But yeah, certainly I think it's a great idea to play different types of decks, and there's a lot of great ways to look for decks online. There's different websites that are available that I mentioned previously. A lot of great people to follow on Twitter where you can ask like what deck list are they playing. And when you play different deck lists, when you play different heroes, you're really learning about the game. You're learning about the cards, which cards have good synergies, and it's really, you learn more about the game. You become a better player. You practice repetition. So definitely encourage you to, some may call it stealing, but I think, try different decks out and then make them your own. I think that's the other important piece of the net decking experience, is to not only find a list and just run it blindly, but think about what works with it, what doesn't work, and go from there. So that redemption comes in quite handy there. And this deck seems to be all about getting value. So every turn you want to try to maximize the amount of value you're getting out of your cards. And it can be really a challenging deck to play against because you're not quite sure what's coming. So it's clear that I have these 2 eggs on the board. Sooner or later they're going to pop. When are they going to pop? I think that's something this other player has to be aware of. Now this competitive spirit gives me basically an extra 4/4 on the board. And now I have this Defender of Argus, which is a really nice card to get right about here. So a few options about where I could put it. So ideally I'd put this right here because that forces them to come into the egg. And I'll pop him. Oh, got a little ahead of myself. So I do want to take this out. That leaves me a pretty full board. Granted, I don't have much in my hand, but even if he does have some kind of board clear, I'm still going to be left with a 4/4 and a 2/1. So this Defender of Argus, I most often run into it in Warlock decks, where they just flood the board with minions, use the Defender of Argus to boost it up, and they just can steamroll you. So I think what I'll do here is play this Sludge Belcher. Does still kind of continue to... I tend to have a bad habit of flooding the board probably more than I need to, which makes me really susceptible to board clears. But I haven't learned that lesson well enough yet. I like putting the other taunt out there to slow this hunter down. So now you can see these got, again, more value, both black whelps out of that egg. This egg's still waiting to pop, and next turn I could potentially draw another Defender of Argus, Keeper of Oldemon. That could be potentially an explosive trap, maybe a freezing trap. So if it is an explosive trap, then all my guys will be white. If it's a freezing trap, then I'd rather have this guy come back out. So there is the explosive trap. Okay. Kind of knew that was going to happen, but I don't have anything to remove secrets. So here I could either play Boom, I could play Tyrion. I think I'll go ahead and play Tyrion. And again, if you can get this deck, it seems this Egg Paladin deck kind of early momentum. You're just constantly asking the other opponent questions. You know, can you deal with this? How are you going to deal with this? And it does create a relentless sense of momentum, which is really fun to play because the last type of deck I was using was still Paladin, but more of the just kind of classic Secret Paladin, ramp up on secrets, and get that combo and go from there. It's very formulaic, not that exciting to play. And we could end the game here with a Blessing of Kings. And there you have it. So just for fun, we'll boost this guy up. Well played. Thank you very much. And there's a successful example of taking a deck from the internet, making it your own, playing, and looks like we got a win. So Eggo the Paladin, there he is. Check him out, try it, see if you like it, and then go online. Go to some of the sites I talked about earlier, and find a hero that you've never played before. Put together a deck that you haven't played before, and learn it. And learn how to play those cards. Learn how to play that hero, and I think it'll make you a better player of Hearthstone in the long run. Until next time, take care.